We thank Allah who has made it possible for us to come here today for this meeting, and then we are hoping that we are going to have a fruitful time and learn about global networks when it comes to halal food and its social impact, inshallah. With this topic, halal food has become very important, especially around the world, and especially also after the pandemic, the COVID-19, and food issues around the world, and whether people have access to halal food and what's the impact it has been on our lives and to Muslim communities around the world. We're hoping that our speakers today, with all their diverse experiences, inshallah, will give us some sort of enlightenment and education on this topic. We are praying for a good time, inshallah. Before we start, I would like us to look at some other issues Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Al-Quran. Allah reminds us in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, inshallah. Allah says that هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كان من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. That Allah is telling us, Allah is reminding us that He has sent the Prophet Muhammad. Hello, can we mute our mics, please? Hello, yeah. Allah is reminding us in Surah Al-Jumu'ah that He sent the Prophet Muhammad to recite his verses to us and then give us some sort of guidance that would uplift our spiritual growth. And inshallah, we learn the book of Allah and then we get wisdom from the Quran. And as part of that, Allah teaches us the kind of food that we need to eat as Muslims or as human beings that will be good for ourselves and also bring some sort of impact in our society. There are some foods that when you eat, it becomes a problem. For instance, taking alcohol. When alcohol is being consumed by people in society, it has this negative effects in society. So I'm not going to speak much on these issues. We hope that our speakers will give us more enlightenment, more education on some of the impact of halal food, inshallah. So we'd like to start with the opening speech from Dr. Muhammad Bikhari. He is the General Secretary of the World Muslim Communities Council, inshallah. Doctor, over to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, everyone.
I would like to request that we all put our microphones on mute. Okay.
Raja, kindly turn off your mic. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate and merciful, peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his followers. First of all, in my name, in the name on behalf of His Highness Ali bin Rashid al-Nuaimi, the head of the Islamic community, Muslim Communities Council, I would like to welcome all guests this conference that managed to gather, to invite or to bring experts in food industry, halal food industry. This sector that has become represents a huge volume commercial-wise across the 5 continents. And this sector managed, the halal food managed to transit, to take the private sector. The private sector, which was about consuming halal meat, to become today, it's become a very wide range of commercial activities. And all derivatives of that meat and whatever is being manufactured from that meat, anything that serves humanity. The religious Islamic point of view played a vital role not only
وإنما كذلك من أجل تذليل الصعاب
pave the way for the consumers, for the Muslim consumer, for the Muslim consumers to have collaboration between the human need and the human requirement to be committed to the path of Islam, the path of Allah, and also the principles of Islam. The World Muslim Communities Council, based on the objectives and its objectives, based on the communication that has been taking place with so many institutions that are operating in the halal food industry, the council prioritizes this topic and places. And this webinar is the objective of this webinar is to raise awareness across the Muslim world and to propagate the culture of halal food as per visions, very clear visions and very ambitious goals to enable the Islamic institutions that operate in this sector, enable them to do their job and do their tasks without any contradictions with the Islamic rules and regulations and principles. One of the goals that we are looking at is to sharpen the skills that you may have from Indonesia, Malay, to Thailand, to Brazil, to Holanda, all those countries all over the world that are taking part in this webinar, India, China, all these participants from different backgrounds, from different countries. We would like to sharpen your skills, networking as well, and to work to improve those mechanisms to achieve those goals and objectives. I hope in the name of the World Muslim Communities Council and on behalf of His Excellency Ali Al-Nuaimi, the head of the council, and in the name of all members of our council, I wish you a very good webinar, and we are waiting from those interactions and those discussions to come up with a very valuable recommendations and outcomes. So the council, the Muslim Communities Council, will take your inputs and look at it. And thank you very much. And salam alaikum.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Bikhari, for your opening speech. Alhamdulillah. We'd like to call on our keynote speaker, who is the person of Professor Eric Sukuso. Inshallah, he is a PhD holder and the former head of the BPJPH. It's actually a Halal Product Assurance Organization Agency. Inshallah, we'd like to call on Professor to give us the keynote address. And then before that, we'd like to remind all our participants here that we have translations in Arabic and then English. So if we have a speaker speaking Arabic, we can switch to the translation in English and then hear what the speaker or understand what the speaker is saying. And then those of us who do not understand English, when the speaker is speaking English, we can switch to the Arabic translation to understand, inshallah. So, Professor, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Professor, please switch on your mic.
Yeah, I switch on my mic.
I
It's
can't
okay.
hear you.
It's on.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
It's okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Thank you to the committee for inviting me as a keynote speaker. So in this occasion, I convey the journey of halal attention in Indonesia. I delivered this presentation based on my references and experience as the former head of the BPTPH. This is the Halal Product Assurance Agency under the government of Indonesia. So all the halal certification in my country changed because before did by the NGO. I think all of you are familiar with the name MUI or Majelis Ulama Indonesia, Indonesia Muslim Association. But now under a new regulation, new law, we start that the all of the certification under the government of Republic Indonesia with the representation is the name of the what's the institution is BPGPH, or we call as the Halal Product Assurance Agency. Well, according to my analysis, the journey of attention to halal product in Indonesia is divided into 4 periods. So, because, you know, the first, of course, the majority of Indonesian population is a Muslim. So the government concerned to give the attention with the halal product. Even in the first period, is as mentioned in our constitution, that is the article number 29 in paragraph 1, that the state is based on the one supreme Godhead. And the paragraph 2, the state guarantees the independence of each residents to embrace their own religion and worship according to their religion and beliefs. This is the basic foundation in translating concern for halal product because the majority of Indonesia population is a Muslim. So to implement or to guarantee this, a joint decree number 68 of in 1985 was issued between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Religion. At that time, the implementation was carried out on the basis of the Ministry of Health with a mechanism that was not detailed, and the community did not really mind it because the thought that was consumed was halal. Along with the growth of experts in the field of food, attention to the food product is a concern to be explored related to the content of the ingredient used to produce the product. So I continue to second period to what's the step, the journey of halal concern in my country. Entering this second period, researchers at the universities began to pay attention to the composition of product used in food, and at that time, in 1988, from a food expert from Brawijaya University in East Java province, that was the place where now I am as a professor in this university, compared the result of his research, that is the composition of food. There are a number of additional ingredients that are added to improve product quality. Turned out to be an ingredient of pork derivatives such as lard, gelatin, and so on. These conditions causes a decrease in consumer confidence in buying processed product, food product especially, which can shake off the national economic condition and cause social problems. The government then invited a non-government organization, namely Majelis Ulama Indonesia or MUI, to calm the community and build trust again by establishing the Food and Drug Monitoring Agencies, or we call as the LPPOM MUI, because that is under the MUI. The work of this institution to carry out certification, but the status is voluntary, that began in 1989. Certification activities are mostly carried out on large companies who are aware that halal certification will give consumers confidence to buy the goods being sold. Because it is voluntary, not all business actors feel the need, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises. However, the incident repeated with the discovery of the use of enzymes produced from non-halal ingredient in product that produce flavoring. This incident occurred in 2001. So this is we call is the period of voluntary certification period. So we enter in third period, halal certification as a mandatory. From the above incident, the government through the what we call is the parliament drafted a law known as the Law on Halal Product Guarantee and was completed for 10 years, officially submitted to government on October 17th, 2014. Based on this law, the government must carry out mandatory certification on products that enter, circulate, and trade in the territory of Indonesia, with a deadline after 5 years of promulgation, namely in 2019. What I state in this statement, it is also a content of the law number 33, as the we call as the law for concerning the halal product. To realize halal certification, the government is obligated to establish an institution known as the Halal Product Guarantee Agency, or we call as BPGPH, as the authority to carry out the halal product certification process. BPGPH was officially established on October 17, 2017, and carried out the preparation activities to realize the mandatory halal certification, which must be carried out on October 17th, 2019. To realize a regulation is needed so that the BPGPH issues a regulation to implement law number 33 on halal product guarantee. And after that, we continue to the fourth period we call as compulsory implementation of halal certification. This period starts on October 17th, 2019 with priority on food and beverages with a coaching period of 5 years. So until October 17th, 2024. After that, all the product, all the means that the food product must be halal certification if entering in Indonesian market. During this period, there was an outbreak of the COVID-19 disease. So efforts were made to limit activities, or we call with the regulation or lockdown policy. This period led to many people doing activities at home so as to foster creativity in doing home-based business. To ensure the smooth running of the community business activities, the government issued a work copyright law number 11 of 2020 in the field of guaranteeing halal product, especially for small, medium enterprises.
Yeah, Professor, please, you have about 5 minutes, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Protection for micro and small business is provided by facilitating the process of recognizing halal product guarantees, known as self-declaring. In this self-declaring activity, it is only intended for micro and small businesses with a limit on turnover below 15 million rupiah per year. The material and production processes are guaranteed to be halal. Self-declare must be declared by business actors to obtain recognition from BPGPS. This provision is regulated in the regulation of the head of the BPGPS. So this is the journey of the condition of the halal concern in my country. Therefore, now, especially to improving the economic after the COVID-19, we also intend to support the activity in micro, small, medium enterprises for their activity in economics, especially in production for food, for halal food production. Okay, thank you. This is all my speech today as the keynote. I hope that maybe it can be as a reference to be as a source for discussing together all of you. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor, for your keynote speech. I think one thing that we learned from your speech is that governments are making efforts, especially implementing laws and certification for halal foods. And I think that it's important that around the world, Muslim communities should also look at this as an example, and then we'll see how best we can also learn from what Indonesia is doing, inshallah. We would not like to waste too much time. We are going to our next speaker, who would give us some thematic speech on the topic, and he's Dr. Sukri Langpute. He is a deputy rector of Fatuni University in Thailand, inshallah. Doctor, if you are around, please, you have the audience. Doctor?
Yes, salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, doctor. Wow.
Yeah.
Please, you have about 10 minutes, please.
Okay.
We are on, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I hope I will try to economize 9 minutes. Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah.
Thanks to Allah and thanks.
Greeting from Patani, greeting from Thailand. To all the audience of this conference, this webinar. My thematic discussion today will be within 10 minutes, inshallah. And then I will discuss on the issues of global halal ecosystem and societal impact. I try to utilize the term global in order to connect local products, local wisdom of halal industries and global market. And I'll try to look at the ecosystem that finally, when you look at the halal industry in non-Muslim countries and Muslim countries, there are two things that we try to consider, that even though we are living in Thailand, a country where Buddhist friends, Buddhist populations are much more in number, but we still bring halal to create the baldah tayyibah wa rabbun ghafur. We still bring the prosperity to the country by using the halal, halal invention, halal innovation, whatever. So in this case, I would like to firstly discuss, the issues of halal market in our country. When we are talking about halal market industry, it is not only halal food. As we all know that Thailand has, tom yum, and this a dish of Thai recipe that known to the world, not only in Indonesia, Malaysia, but also to the world. We can get halal tom yum in Sydney. We can get halal tom yum somewhere else, even in the States, in the US. So in this case, it shows that the tom yum itself is the very, very local food, very typical food, very typical dish of Thailand. But at the same time, it could help produce, a platform for knowing Thailand, knowing Muslim in Thailand in the global market. And not only food, we have, halal education and halal tourism. So when I talk about the ecosystem, it means that halal is in fact a platform for very good ecosystem, not only coming to Thailand or coming to a country for food, but at the same time, you can have, halal financial system, you can have a halal tourism, halal hotel, whatever, or halal friendly or Muslim friendly hotels where you can have, halal food, you can have halal activities. So in this case, halal itself, it could promote how Muslim and non-Muslim live together, especially in a country where sometimes misunderstanding and also, conflicts happen. That's one thing. The second thing is that I'd like to discuss here is that we do have lots of local products in Thailand which are aimed by Muslim visitors, Muslim tourists, not only from ASEAN countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, or the Philippines, but sometimes Muslim from the Middle East, from UAE, so from Dubai, from Qatar, and from Saudi Arabia also want to try Thai food which are halal. So in this case, we'd like to bring, the local products or local food which are normally non-halal, but just be changed from using pork into meat, into chicken, and halal chicken, halal meat, whatever. So it becomes halal for everyone. It becomes for everyone. That will be rahmatul alamin. So in this case, the government is very much pleased, especially when APEC is coming to Thailand within, next 2 weeks. The government is trying to show that Thailand is a home for halal kitchen. So halal kitchen will be not only for Muslims coming to Thailand, but will be for everyone. Because by having, halal logo certified by the Sheikhul Islam office, by the Committee of National Islamic Committee, which are decentralized in the level 2. What I mean by level 2 is that level 1 of halal certificate is at national level, certified by a national body, National Islamic Committee, which is headed by Sheikhul Islam office. But level 2 will be Provincial Islamic Committee. So when we are talking about Provincial Islamic Committee, it means that the halal certification system in Thailand is trying to decentralize, to empower the local halal food and local halal products to be empowered to be finally, as a national product in order to export in other area of the world. Just like, for example, I just would like to see, to mention here, last week we have halal business matching between 10 countries of ASEAN coming to southern Thailand, organized by SBPAC, Southern Border Provinces of Thailand. So finally, just one day business matching of halal product between 10 countries from ASEAN and Thailand, the amounts and the volumes of matching has increased to $1 billion. So it means that even though we are not a Muslim country, we are not, living in an atmosphere where Muslims are majority, but we could also promote halal activities. But at the end of the day, who are getting benefits? the businessmen who are having enough funding to invest for halal industry are not only Muslims. We have a lot of Chinese investors. We have a lot of foreign investors coming to invest in Thailand. At the end of the day, everybody is happy with halal products. The investors got the profits. The people are getting halal food to consume, and foreigners can come to Thailand and enjoy our food as well, because everyone knows that Thailand is a world kitchen. So when we have a world kitchen, we try to get Muslim tourists to come to Thailand and enjoy this kind of world kitchen concept of the country, even though we are not a Muslim country. Okay, so in this case, I would like to mention at the end of my discussion here, if I could finish within before 10 minutes, so I think some other speakers can just utilize my time. I would like to mention here very thematically that the teaching of Islam about Rahmatul Alameen is one. The second is the Quran says, Baldatun Tayyibatun wa Rabbul Ghafur, Balda Tayyibah, the prosperous city, the prosperous town. It could not only happen in Muslim countries. In Thailand, in the Buddhist country, or in Laos, or in China, or everywhere in the world, we are not Muslim country, can be also Balda Tayyibah. In Balda Tayyibah, people consume good food, people consume good activities and halal things, on all those things. At the same time, how could we, okay, my last 2 minutes, how could we connect, two platforms of halal products in order to be effective and impacting in the society, both in Muslim countries, which you have a lot of platforms like OIC, like IDB, all those kind of things. And how could we connect with non-Islamic or countries in the West, the East, with countries and non-Muslim countries to come up for Muslim, but for everyone in the world. So I would like to end here and do welcome to come to Thailand to taste our halal food and our product, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for being on time. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. I think one or other things that I've gotten from your discussion is that we have to concentrate on the fact that it's not just about halal foods. We're also looking at halal activity, and then the halal world kitchen. And then we appreciate what is going on in Thailand, alhamdulillah, where local foods, even though they might not be halal, but they are being modified to fit the halal standards. And then visitors who visit Thailand, inshallah, can enjoy Thai food in the halal way, inshallah. May Allah make it easy and possible, and may Allah strengthen whatever is going on in Thailand, and then communities around the world can learn from what Thailand is doing. Everybody will be happy with halal foods, and then even if we live in non-Muslim countries, the Muslim communities in these countries can promote halal activities, which the non-Muslims can learn and appreciate, inshallah, and it will promote coexistence between ourselves, inshallah. Thank you so much for your presentation. We'd like to invite our next speaker, who is in the person of Dr. Adeline Masood. She is a senior fellow at the Faculty of Economics, and Muhammad, she's with the University Saint Islam Malaysia, inshallah. Dr. Adeline, if you are here, please, you have the audience.
Yes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to just say thank you to the organizer and also our MC today. I feel honored to join this.
Yeah,
I know. You can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going in a different direction because I'm not talking about what is happening in Malaysia, but addressing the integrity of halal food industry using Internet of Everything. So it's slightly different. And I'd just like to show that halal food itself right now is 1.27 USD trillion 2021, and is going to approach 1.67 trillion. So basically, GIER, I think you all know, the Global Islamic Economic Report in 2020 to 2021 has forecasted that halal business sectors is forecasted to grow at 5 CAGR 3.1%, right? And is going to reach, is going to reach USD 2.4 trillion. Muslims and non-Muslims expect high quality assurance and halal integrity towards throughout the whole food supply chain, and therefore only trust halal food products that are halal certified by reputable halal certifying bodies. The era of VUCA, or rather volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity caused by war, extreme weather disruptions, COVID-19 pandemic, is gradually creeping to both underdeveloped and developed nations. So what is affected is not just underdeveloped nations, but also developed nations, and therefore threatening the fragile halal food and nutrient security. Unemployment has risen, inflation rate has increased, production of food has been affected, and the stability of food prices threatened. Therefore, the security of food and nutrition supply destabilized due to the disruption of the supply chain. COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the war between Ukraine and Russia, has severely disrupted the halal supply chain. But it has hastened the implementation of IR 4.0 technology applications. The whole world needs a different solution through the application of IR 4.0 technology to prepare us to face the impending global food and nutrition crisis as what is happening now in Ethiopia. So the use of IR 4.0 will enable manufacturing processes to be streamlined, safety and quality standards will be improved. There is also improvement in agility, ability to track food, because it is very important for us to ensure halal integrity. Therefore, sharing accurate information and data will also enhance decision making. Right, the deployment. What happened in Malaysia is when they wanted to do certifying, or they wanted to carry out certifying procedures, they had to use drones, right? As well as on top of that, utilization of big data processing, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, Internet of Things, and radio frequency identification, RR. For traceability and integrity of ingredients. Therefore, when done comprehensively, it will expedite halal integrity towards standardized global approach to halal commerce. So the great advancement in IR 4.0 technology and its utilization, both Muslim majority and minority nations will be able to cooperate synergistically towards a halal international trade without barriers. So this is the halal ecosystem as defined by Halal Development Corporation in Malaysia. And this is what I would like to share with you that is happening right now in terms of how blockchain technology has been used to improve risk management, such as cross-contamination, spread of disease, wastage, including palm oil trade crimes. The scandal, I think everybody knows about the meat scandal in Johor, and this was tackled successfully as soon as the blockchain technology was used, because it can track the container and provide more efficient and accurate information sharing. Therefore, digitizing operations with blockchain application will increase efficiency, transparency, as well as collaboration, and help combat smuggling and modernize Malaysia's logistic system. So here you can see this is what they applied for the food system elements. There is the food production, distribution, all at every stage of it, they have applied blockchain technology. Okay, here this is Internet of Everything that I would like to share with you, because Internet of Everything is connection between people, things, data, and processes that are combined into a common interrelated system with the aim to improve experiences and make smarter decisions. So the philosophy depicts the world in which billions of sensors are implemented into billions of devices, machines, and ordinary objects, giving them expanded network opportunity. Right now, I'm sure most of you are actually using the computer, you're using your iPad, you're also using your fitness bracelet. So everything is actually Internet of Everything. It's not just Internet of Things, because now we will involve people in it as well. Here you can see the 4 pillars of Internet of Everything. People goes into it. Things also will provide all the different data, and data is just summarized and classified and analyzed, and the information retrieved is then fed into the processes, so that, right, based on artificial intelligence, machine learning, social networks, or other technologies, it will ensure the right information is sent to the right person at the right time. Therefore, the outcome of IOE is a data-based decision. It will increase new capabilities of the whole system, the food system, and give richer experience, not just to the manufacturers or the policymakers, but also to the consumers. So in conclusion, 1/3 of the world population comprises of young, affluent, tech-savvy Muslims and non-Muslims who are passionate about green economy, as they are drivers of the halal economy. In parallel to efforts to create a global halal standard and address halal food integrity and prevent illicit activities, integrating the different dimensions of halal economy needs a new approach, which can be afforded by the application of Internet of Everything and not just Internet of Things. So Internet of Everything is the connection between people, things, data, and processes combined into a common interrelated system, the aim of which to improve experiences and make decisions. Therefore, if we integrate Internet of Everything into halal food ecosystem, it will ensure sustainability and future-proofing of the halal food economy, as decision makers can make decisions based on data retrieved and information sent by Internet of Everything to the correct person in a timely manner with the best information. So that's all from me. If you have any questions, you can ask later on. Thank you very much. I'm Adlin from University Science Islam Malaysia.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. Please, for our subsequent speakers, I would like to remind us that yes, we have 10 minutes, but if you could spare me at least 2 minutes, just so that by the end of this discussion, we'll probably have some feedback, some questions, inshallah. Our doctor talked about the Internet of Everything. She made us understand that she wants to focus on how we interact with the internet and how we can promote halal through the internet. And she mentioned the issue of the Ukraine and then the Russia war, where food supply has been challenged, but with the IR 4.0 technology, manufacturing systems are being checked. And then she also mentioned that the halal business sector is focused to grow. Inshallah, Muslims and non-Muslims appreciate the need for quality in our food supply. And then she mentioned that the blockchain application, with the technology, it helps with the tracking of food supply, inshallah. We don't want to spend so much time here. We understand that it's important that we appreciate the internet and then see how we can apply technology with regards to halal food supply, inshallah. Our next speaker is Professor Fakir Mohammed Anjum. He is the CEO of Infanka Pakistan. It's a halal apex in Pakistan, and he's the former Vice Chancellor of the University of the Gambia, inshallah. Professor, if you are around, please, you have the audience, inshallah. Professor? Professor? Okay, we just have to move to the next speaker, and she is Dr. Saruja Duhairaju. She's a professor of anthropology, Yunnan University, China. Doctor?
Thank you. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. I would like to share my screen right now so that you can see my presentation. Just give me a minute. Okay. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, I can see your presentation. I believe so. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So today, I'm going to do something a little different from the speakers before me, and also from the theme of the conference, which focuses on halal. I want to go beyond halal to look at a framework, a more encompassing framework in Islam, and I call it the Halal Tayyib Mubarakan complex. And I want to look at this framework as a way of creating a better world for all people, Muslims and non-Muslims. So that is my aim today. Now, if you look at Islam, one of the things you notice is that we already know that Islam is a deen, right? It's more than a religion. It's really a prescription for a way of life. So in this prescription for a way of life, we already see provisions for healthy living given to us in Islam. And the guidelines that are provided in Islam support both a healthy mind and a healthy body. So in the current world that we are confronted with, where we face challenges of war, which affects food security around the world, and of course, the effects of the pandemic, we need better framework for a better world and better humanity. And for me, I look at Islam as providing that framework or blueprint, as I call it. And what is this blueprint? I label it as the Halal Tayyib Mubarakan complex, yeah? Now, if you look at the Quran, we have certain provisions in the Quran with regards to food and living, okay? We've all been talking about halal, so we all know of halal as a legal dictate, translated in English roughly to mean lawful or permitted. Now, halal is often privileged in all discourses and discussion on Islamic law, on Islamic Sharia, right? To talk about food provisions, to talk about more than food provisions, but as a way of life, halal is actually privileged in all discussions against what I call its agnate or its opposite, which is haram, which translates into English as unlawful or prohibited. We all know that. Now, one of the things we do not focus on as much, which I want to focus on today, is the concept of tayyib. Tayyib, I feel, is a cognate, while haram is in opposition to halal. There is a more friendly concept, as I call it, a more kinship with halal, and that is tayyib. Tayyib roughly translates, as many of the earlier speakers said, as good, right? Or also some people have translated it as safe, as clean, as nutritious, as wholesome. Now, if you look at the Quran carefully, you will realize that the Quran doesn't just talk about halal, but it also talks about halal in conjunction with tayyib. That means when the Quran talks about that which is lawful, it says that that which is lawful is good. That means that which is halal is tayyib. I give you some examples here from the Quran where it says, "O mankind, eat of that which is halal and tayyib on the earth." So this day, all good, meaning tayyib, things are made lawful to you, halal to you. So they ask thee, what lawful or halal is for them as food? Say lawful, halal, unto you are all things that are good and pure, tayyib. So in the Quran, it's already stated that what is halal is tayyib, okay? I take my reference from the famous Islamic legal scholar, right, who's based in Malaysia, Muhammad Hashim Kamali, who actually sets the concept of tayyib out very, very clearly when he says that when you look at references to tayyib in the Quran and Hadith, it often you see a juxtaposition of halal and tayyib side by side. And when the Quran addresses the prophets and the believers, it says, eat the tayyibat, eat the tayyib from the sustenance that we have provided you. So in this sense, Kamali argues that tayyib is used separately from its litmus halal base. But when you read them together, Kamali argues that there is little doubt that what is halal is also tayyib for the most part. But tayyib can stand alone in that something can be halal, but may not necessarily qualify as tayyib. So what Kamali argues is that the Quran makes tayyib a target for halal itself. It is clear from the purport of the verse that reads, right, in the address to the Prophet, when they ask you what is permissible or what is halal for them, say that which is tayyib. So you can clearly see that halal, when halal is mentioned, it has to be tayyib. So based on my reading of Kamali, this is the diagram I provide here, right? Halal is really a subset of tayyib. So tayyib is really the bigger concept in Islam compared to halal. So what is the relationship between tayyib and halal then? For me, tayyib ensures the integrity of halal. So when you talk about the halal, halal is a legal dictate, right? Tayyib is more a moral injunction that describes the nature of halal. Now, as a moral injunction, tayyib must be conjoined with halal to ensure the better practice of halal in the contemporary scene. And tayyib and its derivatives are actually mentioned in the Quran more times than halal or haram. So why? Because when you look at the world today, that which is halal may not actually be tayyib. I'll give you some examples. So here you have French fries from McDonald's. McDonald's in many countries, including my own country that I come from, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, McDonald's is halal certified, but it's not tayyib. You can look at the products that are sold in McDonald's. I take French fries as an example. Now, French fries is loaded with fat. It's loaded with salt. Two ingredients that are really, bad for humanity. There are three ingredients that are bad for humanity: fat, salt, and sugar. Now, McDonald's in this French fries has two of those ingredients. Next is Coca-Cola, also certified halal in many countries, but it's an overload of sugar, which again is not good for humanity, right? And the third thing is noodles, instant noodles. And that's also loaded with carb, with sugar, with heavy amount of salt and fat. So everything that is bad for you exists in these products, which are halal certified in many countries, but they are not necessarily tayyib. So tayyib then currently maybe a niche economy, right? But it has the potential to become mainstream in the future, many scholars argue. Now, when we look at tayyib, I'm not saying that there is no tayyib today in the halal industry. Actually, tayyib is present in the halal industry today. In Malaysia, they promote, halal tayyib concept. And I'm told by a Malaysian colleague that 70% of all halal products that are certified in Malaysia are actually tayyib. And you see that in terms of ingredients which are, certified to ensure, for example, highest level of food safety in the food chain. But tayyib has not become the primary concern in the halal industry. That's my contention. So here I am trying to say we should look at tayyib in addition to halal. But I want to introduce a third concept in addition to halal and tayyib, and that's the concept of mubarakan. Now, mubarakan is not a concept that you will find, extensively in the Quran, but Mubarakan is actually something that I extracted based on my reading of Islam and the Quran and, what is stated there for humanity to create better lives for themselves. Now, I take the word Mubarakan from the root word baraka. Baraka means divine blessing from Allah. And this divine blessing is different from just regular blessing, right? This divine blessing given by Allah to us humans is essential for human prosperity. So whatever blessing you receive from Allah is essential to human prosperity. Now, I look at Mubarakan in terms of the environment, right? I look at Mubarakan in terms of care for the physical environment and care for the social environment. Care for the physical environment is very, very important. The Quran has already stated that, right? As humans, we are stewards or caliphs. The earth is a mosque, and we are conjoined to take care of this earth, the mosque, for Allah. We just put here as stewards, as khalifa, right? And it's already, we already see Islam as a green deen. Green deen meaning a green religion. Now, this concept of green religion is present in a lot of other religions as well. But Islam, it's right there contained within the Quran that Islam is a green deen. We as Muslims have to measure our production and our consumption, because when we do measure production and consumption, we actually regenerate the earth, regenerate Allah's earth. And that is our real role, yeah? So that's the physical environment. But when you look at the social environment, as Muslims, we are also conjoined to take care of the social environment, gender equality, fair trade practices, work-life balance, mandatory health insurance, for example. All these are part of care for the social environment. And that is what is going to create a good future for the earth and humanity, I argue. So I've expanded this in my paper for the book, in the chapter for the book, but I'm just giving you a brief outline here. So I want to conclude by saying that if you look at the present state of the world, right, huge fault lines exist in the way that we have produced and consumed resources. In the economic systems that we have upheld, in the lives that we have led, and in the way that we have treated our physical, social, psychological, and economic environments, right? There has been huge problems in the way we have dealt with this. We've seen already political turmoil, economic upheavals, wars, pandemic as defining our present world. Very sad, yeah? So, how can we find a solution to a better world? I propose that Halal, Tayyib, Mubarakan as a complex gives us a good solution to a new world order. And why should we take Halal, Tayyib, Mubarakan as a solution to a new world order? Because there's so many movements going around the world today. But I argue that this is a religious injunction, meaning as practitioners of a religion, we are legally and morally bound to espouse and practice this injunction. This is the strongest injunction that you can have when it comes from religion, right? So that is why it is very important to look at improving the earth, changing the way we live through religious lenses is my contention, yeah? And for those of us who are talking about economics, right? Well, I argue again, while Halal, Tayyib, and Mubarakan has the potential of placing the religion of Islam in the array of enlightened positivity, it has also the potential to convert the halal market into a regeneratively lucrative one with Mubarakan outcomes. Okay, I thank you. And if there are questions later, I'll take it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your presentation. For the subsequent presentations, speakers, please spare me at least 2 minutes out of your 10 minutes so that we can get some feedback from our questions from our participants, inshallah. Doctor described the framework or the blueprint that she hoped that it will be a better framework for a better world. Alhamdulillah, she's recommending Halal, Tayyib, and Mubarakan, inshallah, because the Quran also tells us to not just go for halal things, but they should be clean, they should be safe, and they should be good. So I would just like to say that the example given with McDonald's, this is not anything against McDonald's as a company or as a brand, but this is just for studies. And then, we have to be honest when we are speaking about the realities in our environment and in our society. So Mubarakan, she recommends that we have to also look at the physical and the social environment that we live in, which it's also good for us. So the framework that our doctor is proposing is that she wants us to focus on halal, tayyib, and mubarakan for a new world order, which is motivated by religion, inshallah, and we are mandated or we are obliged to be stewards in this world, inshallah. Thank you so much, doctor. So we don't just have to focus on what is perhaps the dictated halal things that we learn from Al-Quran or from the religion, but we also go a little bit further to look at whether it is tayyib, that is whether it is good, it is safe, and it is clean. It might be halal, but it might not be clean, it might not be safe, it might not be good, inshallah. Thank you so much, doctor. We are moving to our next speaker, who is in the person of Professor Wang Yong Bao. He's the Northwest University. He's at the Northwest University of Law and Politics in China, inshallah. Professor, if you are here, you have the audience. Thank you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad.
Thanks to Allah and peace be upon His Prophet and His followers. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes. First of all, I should thank the council, including me as a contributor, to write a paper. The paper's title is Children as a Mark of Halal Food in China. So China is a historical and civilized country with multiple ethnic people who are living together in harmony and peace. In the thousands of years of evolution, there have not been only the native and the religions, the souls had been emerged and developed such Taoism and Confucianism, but also the world ones like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, which have been successfully introduced, gradually strengthened with synthesized characters, as well as exert a wide and far-reaching influence on the epistemology and the behaviors of local people in their special ways. Islam, in short, which originated in the Arabic Peninsula, is not indigenous religion of Chinese people. As for when and how it was come into China, various schools, academics, experts who have different opinions and views. However, the most authentic of which is that the second year of reign of Yonghui in Tang Dynasty, Islam comes to China. The base of this view is in accordance with the record of old book of Tang Dynasty. Meanwhile, the view of Islam was introduced into China was completely different from what other places or in other words, it was not the result of military conquest, but mainly reflect in the way of Arab and the Persian Muslim businessmen who have operated business in China, which was related, civilized, and peaceful. In today's China, there are 10 minorities who believed in Islam, with 23 millions or million inhabited in 5 provinces of northwestern China. In my paper, I emphasized, first of all, the Chinese people's understanding of Qin and Jin and their revolution. The concept of Qin and Jin in classical Chinese literature, meaning that the pure and the cleanness recognized by Chinese people as the food character. Second, the special term of Qingjin evaluated for the Muslims in China. As a ancient Chinese word, Qingjin has begun to associate with the Islam during the later Yuan dynasty, and has gradually evaluated to perform the Islamic teachings, which can be confirmed by the fact that with Muslim scholar who had changed the application of masjid along with the approval of empire from Xinjiang, the pure religion temple, into Qingjin's pure and true worshiping halls, which since then had applied by Muslims in China up to now. As a matter of fact, although both applications refer to masjid, the latter one more precisely manifests the essence of Islam, which emphasize that Muslim worship Allah the Almighty by reflecting His pureness as well as uniqueness, and never associate Him with any sin or any idol. So the halal food in China, with the connotation with Qingjin, meaning that the pure and clean, which it is said in the historical book about this qualification and characters. In the third point, I introduced interconnection of Qingjin with major Chinese traditional thoughts, mainly Confucianism, Taoism, the application of the word halal in China literature. The halal concept, which being applied in the Muslims' daily life. In recent times, the movement in China, the political movement in China, everything should be sanitized, including halal food. No, in China, you cannot find a signboard written in Arabic halal or in English transliteration of halal. You can find the Xinjiang as a mark of halal food. The reason why Chinese Muslims choose the halal as a Xinjiang as a halal mark, in my paper I presented, the Chinese nation is a nation that embraced all the ideas. Chinese culture is extensive and profound and has a long history. It is never conformed on its own culture. Instead, it adheres to open, peaceful attitude and is willing to accept the foreign culture for harmonious coexistence. In Xinjiang or in 5 provinces of China, since the introduction of foreign religion as Islam into China in the Tang Dynasty, it has been imperceptibly influenced by the culture and the flourishing Tang Dynasty, which has gradually changed to a certain context, and localization has been deepened gradually. As the name suggests, it means that in the process of the interaction with Chinese society and culture, Islam actively integrates the China society on the basis of continue to maintain its inherent belief, religions, rights, and values, and constantly draw factors beneficial to its survival and development from China culture for its own use. In addition, it can adapt to the mainstream thoughts of the whole society and the culture. This is my conclusion of the book, of the paper that I contributed to the council. For the sensitive of the issues recently happened into China, I mean, notes suggest to talk about it. Anything related to the concept of the Xinjiang being as a halal mark in China, and the question related to this point, so please raise the question to ask me. Okay, my presentation is finished.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation. I would just like to remind our speakers again, please, yes, we have 10 minutes, but if you could spare me just 2 minutes so that at the end we can have some feedback questions from some participants. If not, it's going to be a challenge for us. I don't want to keep interrupting if the speaker is speaking, but we hope that you would spare some 2 minutes, at least from your time, inshallah. From the presentation by Professor Wang, we appreciate the fact that he's telling us that we might not necessarily find halal symbols or marks in China, but the cultural dynamics in China with regards to the Xinjiang, it appreciates halal. So if you don't find halal marks or symbols in China, but you can associate with the Chinese culture, which also appreciates the idea or the philosophy of halal, inshallah. Without wasting much time, we'd like to invite our next speaker, who is the person of Dr. Conrad Thomas. He's a senior researcher at the Center for Advanced Studies of Population and Religion, and a professor in the Department of International Affairs of the Krakow University of Economics, inshallah, in Poland. Dr. Conrad, if you are here, you have the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'd like to talk briefly about the dynamics of politicization of halal food in Europe. Just to set a scene, you're probably well aware of the fact that there's been unprecedented growth of the development of halal goods and services across Europe, not only in countries with significant Muslim minorities, such as France, Germany, or UK, Netherlands, Italy, Spain, but also in those where there are small communities, and this is the country for where I'm speaking, Poland, where Muslims make up only 0.1% of the total population of the country, but Poland is one of the major meat producers in the EU, and this is very important for the halal certification and the halal market as such. Market expansion has facilitated rise of new certification bodies, each of their own with their own marketing strategies and interpretations of what constitutes authentic halal. And these two processes have been also linked with significant politicization of halal food in Europe, and complaints reappearing in a public sphere that halal food supposedly divides citizens, violates norms of animal welfare, and steadily introduces Islam into Western society. That's some of the arguments advanced. The key objective of my short presentation will be to shed light on some of the dynamics of politicization of halal food in Europe, and I'm going to advance two arguments. One is that the halal food is being instrumentalized for political purposes in Europe by various actors for a wide range of goals. And the most sort of obvious ones are the politicians and political parties seeking to increase their electoral chances, especially right-wing and far-right parties, but not only. Animal rights activists are very present in left-wing parties, and they also hope to mobilize more people to their causes. And it's also interesting how halal food producers and certifiers are also in some way politicizing the subject in order to raise consciousness among their potential clients and expand their markets. This expansion and politicization of halal food has empowered some Muslim groups within the Muslim communities, but also subjected them to controversy and Islamophobia, and especially in the countries where they constitute a small minorities, such as Poland. In the presentation, I'm going to briefly talk about what it means, politicization and depoliticization, and then explore key factors contributing to the politicization of halal food in Europe, and then go through 3 case studies, UK, France, and Poland, and provide some concluding remarks. So as far as the politicization process is concerned, I mean by this, after Duszczyk, Lesińska, and Wiesner, a process through which specific phenomenon, issue, theme, in our case, halal, is gaining political character and is included in political system and becomes a subject of political contestation and public debate. I think that political contestation and public debates are crucial for my understanding of politicization. As a consequence of politicization, something is treated as a problem that requires a reaction of the state and thus becoming the subject of politics. Depoliticization is a reverse process. When issues are no longer subject to political contestation, it is characterized by governance through consensus building and pragmatic compromise. As far as the key factors contributing to politicization of halal food are concerned, The most obvious one is the growth of Muslim communities, and along with it, the growth of halal markets. So this is partially in Europe, it's linked with the politicization of migration, but you have to be aware of the fact that the largest communities in Europe at the moment are actually made up by persons who have been born in Europe and who didn't come to Europe. And by this, I mean, especially in countries such as UK and France that I'll be talking about, slightly less the case of Germany with a huge influx of the Syrian refugees after 2016. That's why you don't have them included in this particular charts where France is the largest Muslim population. But at the moment, I would argue that Germany would be the largest Muslim population in Europe, in Western Europe, in particular, on which I focus. I don't look into the case of Eastern and Russia in particular. So growing concern for animal welfare and growing strength of the animal rights movement is one of the sort of general, factor that contributes to politicization of halal food. And this is part of a global trend, which is a concern for the decline of biodiversity and efforts to mitigate the consequences of climate change in some way. Important in the case of Europe is also the perception of halal as uncivilized Muslim practice, and the fear of Islam and Muslims, which has a pure sort of Islamophobic undertones. And in some countries, it's even manifesting itself in a shift from nationalism to civilizationism, driven by the notion of civilization and threat from Islam. And this is, I would argue, this is the case of Central and Eastern Europe to some extent. But this process is, Brubaker has been also tracing in countries such as France or the Netherlands, which is very important. We have to remember also about the acts of terror committed in Europe and elsewhere in the name of Allah, which obviously have contributed to this Islamophobic sort of feelings. Concerns for social cohesion with and without self-isolationism of some groups within the larger Muslim community. So by this I mean that some of these concerns have some grounds, sociological grounds, but most of it it has a very strong sort of Islamophobic undertones. As far as the politicization of Islam in Europe is concerned, because this is sort of a broader perspective, this process, I would argue, started from the 80s. In the 70s, Europeans were not very much concerned with the growing Muslim minorities, and Islam and immigrants remained in a way sort of hidden, as Felice D'Assetto is arguing, and mainly constrained to their private sphere. The situation started to change from the beginning of 80s with the growing community, the community becoming more diverse, more gender balanced, and sort of more interaction also with wider societies. The key moments of politicization of Islam in Europe are end of the 80s, Rushdie affair and affaire du Foulard in France, more or less at the same time. I'm sure you know them, so I don't need to elaborate on them. Just mentioned that these are important sort of watershed moments. And from that time, Islam hasn't been out of the political sphere, and it's been this debates continue through the Danish cartoons. In France, it's a continuous talking about hijab, niqab, and it's ongoing and it hasn't ended. But this is not a theme of my presentation. I want to focus on halal food and UK, France, and Poland as a sort of exemplary sort of countries. So in the case of UK, we can trace it back to mid 80s to city of Bradford, where Ray Haniford, a schoolmaster, very strongly stood against the development of British multiculturalism and anti-racist policies and wider impact on education society. And his particular concern was, as he said it as highly problematic, was the provision of halal food in schools in Bradford. We started at that time. And in that sense, this is one of the key moments in the politicization of halal food. It had a local character, mostly constrained to Bradford area, but this would be the beginning. And then the Haliford reignited strong opposition to religious slaughter, bringing also an alliance of radical animal rights and far-right groups together to unleash a high level of racist rhetoric. And as a result of this, also we could see a mobilization of the Muslims against this discourse and establishment of Halal Food Authority in 1994, initially certifying only non-stumped and later also pre-stumped animals, and later Halal Monitoring Committee in 2003, adhering to stricter rules, in particular manual slaughter and without stunning. In the context of war on terror in particular, there was increasing focus of sensational media on supposed halalization of all the meat products and supposed production of it in non-stunned way. And some researchers are describing this as a halal hysteria, even. I mean here the category proposed by John Lever. As the studies, DEFRA studies shows, for example, the latest one, only majority of sheep are slaughtered in halal method, as you can see on the graph. And most of it is 40%, as you can see, is stunned. 25% is non-stunned. The rest type of meat is mostly non-halal. To just show that to what extent the halalization argument is a faulty argument and with important sort of Islamophobic undertones. In the case of France, which is a very sort of secular society, staunchly secular, I would say, halal designation is frequently viewed as synonymous with cultural self-segregation and Islamization. And at the same time, you can see that there is a continuous growth of halal food market. And in the recent study from 2020 shows that 80% of French Muslims declare buying halal meat all the time or most of the time. And this process of politicization has also led to emergence of halal certification institutions with, but differently organized. The biggest mosques have the priority here, and also independent organization Avot Service established in 1991. And there is a continuously re-emerging sort of fears of supposedly socially divisive effects of publicizing halal. And the very latest is from October 2020, when the French Interior Minister, Gérard Darmanin, complained on television, being shocked to enter a supermarket and to see a shelf of what he called the communalist food, or cuisine communautaire, as he called it. And he clearly meant halal food. In the case of Poland, which is, as I said, a smaller country, and but very important from the perspective of halal meat production, we had several moments in history where ritual slaughter was banned. Just before the Second World War, the ritual slaughter was banned, and it had a very clear anti-Semitic undertones. And later on, this is the moment between 2012 and 14 when this was banned. And I'm just moving to the conclusions. And we have a situation where a Mufti of Poland stood very strongly against animal rights activists and members of his own community. And this was a very hugely sort of mediatized affair. And in a way, the Mufti became the face of struggle for ritual slaughter in Poland. Although, in fact, the main group that lobbied for the maintenance of this practice were the farmers and agriculture sector that was very much interested in this practice. And what is interesting, and with this case, I'll just add, the Polish case is that lack of transparency in the halal certification carried out by the private company by Mufti Mishkiewicz led to deep divisions within the Tatar community. And that's what I meant by some negative effects of halal certification for some Muslim communities in Europe. This is very clearly visible in the case of Poland. To conclude, you can see with the growth of Muslim communities and expansion of halal markets, one may observe an increasing politicization and opposition to halal food in Europe, with very frequent Islamophobic undertones. The easiest targets are the religious exemptions granted in many countries to bans on killing without stunning. And there was, in especially Nordic countries, abolition of these exemptions were abolished. And recently, European Court of Justice ruled that member states may do away with such exemptions on the grounds that requiring stunning limits religious freedom, but it's proportional to the objective of promoting animal welfare. So in a way, animal welfare is put as more important in that way. And halal certification as an important element of strengthening financially and partially politically some Muslim groups has also, this I showed on the case of Poland, significantly weakened internally the Polish Tatar community and led to some very strong, deep divisions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your presentation. We will not spend so much time here. We just want to look at some of the things that we learned from what Doctor has presented. He made mention of the fact that in Poland, Muslims are just about 0.1% in population, but Poland is actually a major production country for meat, inshallah. And then this has also led to some other politicization of halal foods in terms of what Muslims hope to achieve with certification of halal in Europe. As Muslims continue to grow, if the numbers continue to grow, the politicization also increases. Basically, Doctor has made us understand that halal foods, basically in Poland, has become a center of politicization. The right wing and are using it against the Muslims, and then the left wing are also promoting animal safety and other things. So politicization in Europe or in Poland due to halal food has been a problem, and Muslims are being subjected to some sort of Islamophobia. But we are hoping that as there's more enlightenment, there's more acceptance in our communities, this will change as time goes on, inshallah. We don't want to waste so much time. If you want to learn more about what Doctor presented, we can always come back to the recorded video of this whole meeting, and then we can learn the details that Doctor gave us, inshallah. We'd like to move on to our next speaker, who is in the person of Dr. Eva Longerbeck. She's the Deputy Executive Director for Malaysia German Chamber of Commerce and Industry, inshallah, in Malaysia. Dr. Eva, if you are here, you have the audience.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've heard already some very interesting intakes from my fellow researchers, and especially from Mr. Conrad when he mentioned some of the neighboring countries of Poland, especially Germany, where I am from. I will talk a little bit about halal certification bodies in Western Europe, but since I only have 8 minutes of time, I will mainly limit that to Germany and Austria to give you an idea about the landscape in Western Europe. I will concentrate a little bit on the challenges, which is also interesting, of course, for Muslim consumers, because I'm pretty sure if you would travel, you would watch out for products that have some sort of an halal seal to make sure that you consume halal food only. However, that is not so easy in Western Europe. And then I will concentrate on the 2 countries I just mentioned and conclude with a short summary. In Western Europe, what you usually see is number one, the word halal is not regulated. That means consequently also the misuse of halal or any halal seal is not controlled either by the government. What is interesting to see is that most Western Europe countries do regulate the form of religious slaughtering. So we talk about kosher slaughtering, for example, or halal slaughtering. But there are also no uniform requirements for that, depending on the country. And what is interesting, for example, in case of Germany, it has something to do, of course, with our past history and the Third Reich, that kosher slaughtering is usually permitted, whereas halal slaughtering is usually prohibited, and permits are very, very difficult to get, which means that halal meat in Germany is usually imported, especially from Turkey or the neighboring countries. There are also no uniform regulations on halal labeling or anything. Yeah, if you think about organic food, for example, the regulations are quite strict, especially in Germany, but that's not the case for halal. And that makes it quite difficult, of course, for a consumer to know which seal actually is authentic, which halal certification body adheres to which standards, and which seal, of course, consequently you can trust. So leading to that, you will find that the standards across the certification body depend on the target market or the domestic market, and also largely on the certification body. Yeah, whether you look, for example, at a religious certification body or whether you look at something that has a more commercial motive behind. Very often, even if you talk about commercial certification bodies, the applied standards are quite unclear, or at least not easy to be identified for a normal consumer. In most cases, the standards of the exporting countries are being applied, or our own standards if the domestic market is the main target market. But you won't find a halal certification body, for example, which covers the whole spectrum, meaning it is quite common, for example, that some certification bodies do not certify meat. They focus on supplements, for example, and other food products or cosmetics, but not meat. And in the end, you have over 100 certification bodies in Western Europe alone, resulting in an oversupply. Majority of those certification bodies can naturally be found in countries with a high Muslim population, so in France, the UK, and also Germany. And what you will find usually that there's also heavy competition among the certification bodies, because this is also linked, of course, to the fact that who has actually the monopoly to define what is halal and which standards are being applied. If a company, for example, wants to export, usually the choices are much more limited because not every certification body would be recognized. If you think about Malaysia or Indonesia, for example, we have rather strict guidelines that typically limits the choice to 1 or 2 certifiers per country. And across the board of the certification bodies, most Sunni schools of thought would be represented, same for the Jafariya from the Shi'i Islam. So in Germany, again, we have no central standard for halal products, but we have at least 14 certification bodies. And in Austria, we have a big dispute between the 2 main halal certifiers. One is a commercial organization focusing on exporting companies, and the other one is the main religious body of Austria. In both countries, ritual slaughter is regulated. However, if we look at the example, for example, here for Germany, I've selected a few. You will see, for example, we have ECT, a GmbH, a private limited company in Hamburg. That one is, you could say, mainly recognized by the Iranian community and also Iran in Germany, but applies the Iranian standard more or less. Then we have the EHZ, which has largely their own standards, but also is attracting companies who export to Thailand and France and Austria. And for export companies, the main source is typically Halal Control, which is a commercial organization, but recognized by Malaysia, also Indonesia, and a few other Muslim countries. And for Austria, the main one I mentioned already is the Islamic Community of Austria. They apply their own standards according to the Animal Protection Act, but otherwise they're not recognized in other countries. So if someone from Austria would like to export products from Austria to abroad, they would usually go to IIDC, because they're also recognized in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, for example, and apply most of their standards depending on the export country. So my conclusion, of course, related to that is that the lack of regulation in Europe, especially in Western Europe, has reached an oversupply of certification bodies, and also, of course, unfortunately gives rise to fraud. That's sometimes those certification bodies pop up like mushrooms, especially in the UK, and it is a bit unclear which standards are being applied. It confuses, of course, also consumers and makes it quite difficult for exporting countries to export to other areas. Any form of control, for example, is usually not so much enforced by domestic authorities since there's no regulation, but then the control is only enforced by the export countries when standards, for example, are not met and the import is being denied. Some other researchers have recommended the same, of course. It would be great to have a uniform halal standard on a European level, because we do have also other standards, whether it is for pharmaceuticals and foods on the European level, but surprisingly not a uniform halal standard. It would make it easier, of course, to implement any control and enforcement, and thus provide better consumer protection. And it would even make it easier from a commercial point of view when it comes to import and export. And with that, I conclude my presentation. I think that should give exactly 2 more minutes for a question and summary.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor, for your presentation. Thank you. Doctor focused on certification bodies in Western Europe. She made us understand that halal slaughtering in Germany is prohibited, so mostly halal foods are imported, and certification is basically dependent on domestic commerce, whether commercial or religious bodies. And there are over 100 certification bodies across Western Europe, and mostly some of these can be found in where Muslims are more or many, especially in France and then in Germany. And then there's no central standard for halal in Germany, but halal is actually dependent on the certification bodies, inshallah. Thank you so much, Doctor, for your presentation. We'd like to move on to Madame Soha Al-Shabrau. She's the director of the halal industry at the Federation of Islamic Institutions in Brazil. We just want to hear from her. Give 5 minutes, please, speech with us, then we'll continue with our speakers, inshallah. Madam,
thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa ashabi jama'in.
Peace be upon you.
Well, we work, as you well said, in a certifier company called Ras Halal. And I want to bring some very special data here today, which is that Brazil is the biggest exporter of halal animal protein in the world. And this is due to the quality of company certified that they are able to provide when we talk about food safety, when we talk about food quality and aspects of halal requirements according to the accreditation requirements. As another speaker we had here with us, Dr. Saruja, she brought it, the fact of the halal tayyib, which I really agreed with her. And we implement this concept in all our certifier companies. So we even have a slaughterhouse exporting their products to countries that it's not mainly of Muslimin. such as China, for example, because they understand that the products that we certify, they have a very good quality concerning the food safety, the halal tayyib itself, and the quality of those certified products, you know. So not to talk only about halal protein, but today FAMBRAS is the certification body that has the greatest number of category, which allows us to certify company in almost any field, such as cosmetic, pharmacology, animal feed, transportation, warehouse, chemical products, among others. So with that said, I hope Brazil can keep growing in halal field, providing great quality products to the whole world. I have a very brief contribution today, but I hope it could help of anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam, for your brief comment and speech. Yeah, we appreciate what Brazil is doing, and then we hope to learn from Brazil, and then hopefully Muslim communities around the world would emulate that. We have Professor Fakir Muhammad Anjum. He's the CEO of Infanka Pakistan, the Halal Apex in Pakistan, and the former Vice Chancellor of the University of the Gambia, inshallah. Professor, if you are around, you have the audience. Thank you. Professor Fakir. Professor. Professor Fakir.
Please move to next one. Maybe he's not ready yet.
Okay, just a minute. Yeah, just a minute. So we want to move on to Mr. Mohammed Noor. He's the founder and CEO of Halal Trade Zone, Techie. Please, sir, if you are around, you have the audience.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And I would like to speak about the challenges that are there in international halal trade, halal food trade especially. And the solutions that we propose and that we have been working on. So coming to the challenges that we face, that we have been seeing since last 13 years, and with the recent events which are happening in the world, the challenges we face is with regards to the shipping and logistics. These days, the cost of shipping and the availability of the containers has become difficult. The integrity issues in the supply chain, payment processing in the food trade, especially in the CIS region and with the Southeast Asian countries, and the issues of scams and problems with the quality of the products. So these are some of the challenges that we have been facing, and the challenges that have been recent are the increase in prices, food prices, and disruption of raw materials and the commodities especially from Ukraine.
Sir, please, do you have your video on? Or are you, I don't know, your camera is not on, your video?
Yeah. Is it okay if I'm
okay.
audio? Yeah.
Okay, fine. That's fine. Thank you. Just
all right. Okay, thank you so much. So coming to the solutions, what we propose for food security, halal food security especially, the solution, it has to come from both the private sector and from the governments. So coming from the private sector, we need to encourage development of local halal businesses, especially in food business, and train them in sustainable development of halal food production and develop the delivery network. So we suggest this to be done on a global scale, and wherever the Muslim communities are, encourage local entrepreneurship in halal food. So the halal food security is provided for that particular community in this situation of disruption in food chain, halal food chain supply. So on the government level, we propose the development of halal industrial parks to support the local SMEs and to fully utilize the resources that are available in the OIC countries. So there is the job creation and the opportunity for the local economy to develop a strong local halal economy, and also export products which are needed in other countries. So it helps both OICs and non-OIC countries. So with this, we have already started working towards another issue which is about the certification and lack of clarity on the standards which have been used in certification of halal products. So we have already come up with a new certification which combines sustainable practices along with halal standards. So it's called Aska Assurance Certificate. Inshallah, we'll be publishing more about it in coming days. And we have also started working towards development of Halal Center of Commerce and Industry with the intention of connecting halal SMEs from all over the world together and giving them a platform where they can basically connect with each other and conduct trade mission with the OIC countries and the non-OIC countries. And inshallah, this Halal Center of Commerce and Industry is going to be based in Saudi Arabia. And plus, we have also started speaking to governments on development of halal industrial parks to promote the development of local halal economies and to connect the OIC and non-OIC countries with the halal trade and develop their cooperations and economies. So this is what we have been doing. And for this global problem, which is we are facing now, we need to think globally and act locally. So that's what we propose. The solution for this security of halal food has to come from both the private and the government sector, where the private sector does come up with innovative ideas to develop halal products, halal food products locally with available resources, and the government supporting the entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs. So with that, I would like to conclude. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your short presentation and letting us know what you are doing with the Halal Trade Zone, Alhamdulillah, in Turkey. You did mention that the local economy, you've done some proposals for halal for the local economy in Turkey, especially with the SMEs, and then you are looking at establishing a halal center of commerce and industry for the world, and then hopefully to be headquartered or hosted in Saudi Arabia. Alhamdulillah for all the work that you are doing, and then we hope that as you've proposed, that we should think globally and act globally to support food security in terms of halal standards, inshallah. And we hope that we could continue to cooperate with private sectors and the governments as you have been doing, inshallah. And then we hope that Muslim communities around the world would emulate what you are doing, and then inshallah we shall achieve what we hope to achieve. I would like to call on Professor Fakir, if you are here. Professor Fakir Muhammad? Okay, then I would like to move on to the next person. Just a minute. The next person. We have Dr. Alina Abdurrahim. She is Associate Professor, Faculty of Science and Technology, University Saints Islam Malaysia. Please, Doctor, you have the audience. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And thank you everybody for still being here. Okay, so we had listened and heard to many great ideas just now from various speakers, okay, ranging from our main organizers, okay, the Secretary General, and then keynote speech. We have Prof. Engineer Ira Sukoso, who had mentioned on the success of Indonesia in putting halal certification into practice with 4 major stages on the country level that range from the transition from Majlis Ulama Indonesia to LPPOM MUI, Lembaga Perubatan Pangan Ubatan Makanan Majlis Ulama Indonesia, to BPJPH, and had seen how from a huge scales of incorporating the halal culture, okay, to the nation, to the food industry, okay, making it well known. Okay, so he had elaborated in stages, the 4 stages mentioned earlier, and also highlighting about how to empower the home-based food business by issuing licenses to operate, and how the COVID pandemic had actually badly affected the most of the world. So how do actually the micro and smallholders to be further empowered to make sure that halal food safety and integrity are actually achieved? So Prof. Sukoso also mentioned about several universities and scientists doing research in food ingredients as well as scientific research that help government agencies for halal authentication, and also the strong backing of many laws and regulations, as well as protection on smallholders for halal food producers. Okay, so that is Prof. Sukoso to start off with, followed by Dr. Sukri Longgoputeh, Deputy Rector of Fatani University, so our neighbor from the north, who had also mentioned empowering the local communities in ecosystems of food, financial systems, tourism, and hotels, and also what are the initiatives that we can figure out to empower multilateral ties between Southeast Asia that help to promote Muslims, that we live together and reduce conflict, increase economic halal trade and prosperity, and also to reduce whatever local problems. Dr. Saroja Dorai Raju, Professor of Anthropology of Yunnan University, also had mentioned a unique possible approach for problem solving, a multidimensional halal approach that encompass halal toyib mubarakan. And one of the several examples she quoted did mention about certain processed food which are processed into halal, which may be snack food, but then it is not nutritious. So it is halal but not toyib. So practical problem solving framework which she proposed is to actually provide solutions that is good, okay, toyib, and then barakah or mubarakan. And we can figure this out that it can be practical if it is not to go against the Quranic teachings and hadiths from Prophet Rasulullah SAW teaching, which classified the knowledge of true hadiths based on the sanad and authentic and is of original traceability. Okay, Madam Adlin Masud from my university, she is the Senior Industry Fellow, had elaborated an extensive Internet of Everything approach to connect many multidisciplinary or multidimensional agencies, stakeholders of halal to fulfill the needs and to actually help implement and improve the halal ecosystem. Whilst Prof. Wang Yongpao from Northwest University of Law and Politics mentioned the concept of Chin and explain diversity and uniqueness of Chinese traditional culture and approach that highlight goodness, health of products without using Arabic or English or other foreign language descriptions. So there are interconnection of Chin to describe halal marks that describe open, peaceful attitude and harmony without using a foreign language or terminology. We hope that this can actually be worked together mutually among not only those of the Chinese nation, but from from a global point of view, and also halal is integrated together and make clear to be understood, okay, to follow the Quran, Sunnah and Hadith. Okay, Dr. Conrad Thomas who is a senior researcher, mentioned about the issues of Islamophobia and misinformation, that is halal being politicized, and there are fear Islamophobia and negative point of view. So there are also issues in Europe concerning about communalism food and legal challenges of banning ritual slaughter. So we hope that this struggle between various stakeholders parties, okay, that mentioned of animal, livestock, agricultural sector, the gaps can be decreased. And we have to figure out how to provide halal transparency and trust. And Dr. Eva Lengebeck, who is actually Deputy Executive Director of Malaysian-German Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Malaysia, talks about also similar issues of Germany and Poland, okay, and about how the various different certifying bodies, okay, which provide different laws, requirements, legislation, so it causes a certain dispute. So standards are not user friendly in Germany and not well understood. Okay, and we have Madam Soha Shabrawi from Brazil, who mentioned about raw material ingredients, protein suppliers of Brazil to be supplied worldwide, and indicate the high interest to provide halal quality export products and ingredients worldwide. And lastly, we have Brother Muhammad Noor, founder and CEO Halal Trade Zone Turkey, who had proposed some steps, some solutions, business solutions to overcome broken halal supply chains. And there are sustainable practices approach as well as online connecting business to business, okay, and then trade zones, halal industrial parks networks to spearhead the initiative to encourage mutual cooperation and networking to start working together. Okay, so these are actually the very brief summary that I tried to cram in a short time limit. So perhaps this can be a benchmark or a starting point to start to work together for our community. And we hope that perhaps if we can use ICT-based, business-based, government-to-government based, okay, to actually see where we can start, okay, and starting to help each other instead of allowing the halal disputes or trade barriers. So I think I open the floor, okay, if there are any question and answers that can be channeled to any of the speakers.
Yeah, so if we have any questions or feedback, even from the speakers too, maybe speaker to another speaker, if you have any questions or feedback, it's also welcomed. If there are other participants here too who want to ask any question or give a feedback, we are far behind time. Our time is up, but we could just take some few and then we can wrap this up. Thank you.
Yes.
A question to Eva, if I may.
Yes.
I was wondering, Eva, how the influx of Syrians 2015-16 has changed the halal market in Germany, whether there has been any significant changes in that sense, and to what extent also the fact that Islam is not recognized by the state as a state religion is making this situation difficult. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I could not detect any major differences in the halal certification body scene as compared to before we had the influx of Syrian migrants. However, I would say similar to Poland, we also have a certain part of the society where halal is also closely associated, for whatever reason, with radical Islam or fundamentalist ideas. So if you walk around in a German supermarket, Berlin being the exception, because Berlin, of course, as the capital, having a large Muslim community, and most normal or non-religious supermarket or supermarkets which are in an area without a significant Muslim population, you wouldn't find halal products. That's one thing. And then, of course, since Islam is not an officially recognized religion by the state, definitely it complicates matters. We've seen that in the discourse when we talked about kosher slaughtering versus halal slaughtering, which from a logical point of view doesn't make sense, that halal slaughtering does not really enjoy the same benefits as kosher slaughtering. But definitely it is one area where it is.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we don't have much time anymore. And then we just like to thank everyone for your time. Thank you so much to all our speakers for honoring our invitation from the World Muslim Communities Council. We appreciate your time. And then for all other participants who were here, thank you so much. And then this meeting has been recorded. Inshallah, we can share it to our colleagues at the workplaces, our families, or on social media, so that those of us that could not join the meeting can learn from all the discussion that we had here. Thank you so much to all the speakers for your time. The World Muslim Communities Council is very pleased that you honored our invitation. Thank you so much, and then may God bless you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Welcome to Thailand, anyway, everyone.
Sesungguhnya dah. Okay.